gentlemen. All right, so look, y'all. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about this elephant in the room because it's a big one and it's heavy. But we're going to talk about it, and it's going to take us a little time to get through it, but we're going to do it. This is guaranteed to be a very interesting subject matter and a very interesting evening in regard to what this means. Good evening, Val. It's good to see you. So, let me get myself together here, y'all. You know what? You don't ever really realize how much it takes sometimes to get prepared to do these shows. It's actually some work, believe it or not. But tonight, like I said, we're gonna get into some real deep stuff in regard to the violence in Chicago, because anytime an event that takes place in my city, and I'm all the way in Texas, I want y'all to understand that when it makes my local news, it's something wrong. It's an issue. I'm just saying. All right, y'all, stand by. We're going to get this thing kicked right off.
Door number 2 or door number 3.
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number 1, 3, 2, 8. No, wait, hold on.
Thank you for stopping in, my brother. I appreciate you. You being a fellow Chicagoan, transplanted like myself to other places, you would definitely understand what I'm about to say, and you would definitely get into this topic, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to contribute in that way, so stay tuned on that. Before we get into too much of that, right away, I want to talk about this coronavirus right quick. This ain't gonna take but a second, but we gotta get through it because there's some necessary points that need to be made right here. So let me do that. Hey, Brunella, hey, Dennis, thank y'all for checking in. Lamont, my man, I'm glad I got a lot of my Chicagoans on here tonight because y'all, we're getting ready to get into it. My girl Elizabeth, what's going on? Thank y'all for stopping in, checking on a brother. So look here, y'all, on this coronavirus, right? I thought about some real interesting stuff, and I've been, of course, you hear all this stuff, and it takes a toll on you. You get tired of listening to it. At least I do, because I ain't gonna lie, it gets real. It'll wear you out. But right off the top, I want y'all to understand something while we're talking about these numbers, right? So from January till now, it's been 7 months, right? And I think January was the very first person that actually died from COVID-19. It's been about 7 months. In a few days, it'll be 7 months. Do y'all know that we have now surpassed the amount of individuals killed in action in Vietnam, which was 9 years for the United States, from 1964 or 5 all the way to 1972 or 3, I think it was. We were involved in that conflict. And in that time, I want you to understand that war lasted 9 years. In Vietnam, a total of 40,934 individuals were killed in action. In this coronavirus, we are at 140, I believe it's 3,000 now, in not quite 7 months. Florida alone has 1,954. That's how many people were killed in action from Vietnam for 9 years. And Florida deaths now with corona-related illness is 3,702. Texas, it was 3,415 in Vietnam, and we are at 4,129. So I want y'all to think about that in a 7-month period, and people are trying to still act like this thing is not that serious. Miss Billups, how are you this evening? It's good to see you. Thank you for checking in with me. This is serious, y'all. Now, while I respectfully note that these are not numbers, these are people, these are people's loved ones, these are individuals who have families and people who care about them and people who they themselves cared about. I don't want, we've reduced these things to numbers when we see these reports on the television, and I think that it's kind of unfair when we do that. So we need to be sure to remember that these are individuals. While people are online making jokes and saying things like this virus is not serious and that sort of nonsense, let's remember people are dying and they could easily become one of your loved ones. So be very, very careful what you ask for. And I want you to think about this. They've yet to open government buildings. They've yet to hold government meetings and things of that nature without social distancing and other things of that in place. Right now, I know someone within a few school boards, and they're holding Zoom meetings, yet to talk about opening the schools, but they're going to send your child into these systems. I want y'all to really give that some thought. They want to send your children into classrooms, children who they require to have shot records. They won't even let your kids in school without the proper shots, but they're willing to let your children go to school right now in the middle of a pandemic. They got to get all kind of vaccinations and jump through 9,000 hoops in order to attend school right now today. But they're going to let your child go to school during a pandemic. I need y'all to think about that. They've opened up the economy, yet they've been forced to shut it back down, right, wrong, or indifferent, because of the way things are going. And the last point I'm going to make about this COVID right now is that this country is about to run off a fiscal cliff. We have yet to see the complete fallout from this. Oh, and it is coming. It's coming. Y'all better watch out. All I can say is everybody hold on to your seats, hold on to yourselves, hold on to your family, and hope for the best, because it ain't gonna be cute. Now, I'm gonna say this much. Y'all's man, Donald, he decided today that, he announced today, that they were going to finally approve this new vaccine for this virus. Well, I'm gonna just say this. I ain't gonna tell you what to do, but I won't be taking it. I'm gonna just put that right there, so y'all can feed on that for a second. Hold on. Won't be me. And I strongly advise anyone considering any of this to think long and hard before you jump out there and just start taking these vaccines that they are supposedly putting in place for our betterment. I personally have a trust issue with our government and those who claim to have our well-being, our best interest at heart, when the only thing that it brings to mind for me is this right here. I haven't forgotten. I'm sure many of you haven't forgotten. And in case y'all forgot or never knew, let me say this. The Tuskegee Experiment began in 1932 at a time when there was no known treatment for syphilis. After being recruited by the promise of free medical care, 600 men originally were enrolled in the project. The participants were primarily sharecroppers, and many had never before visited a doctor. Doctors from the U.S. Public Health Service, PHS, which was running the study, government-sponsored genocide. Once again, there are so many examples of this, it is unheard of. Y'all don't even want me to get me to start listing all of the experiments that have been done on our people by this government, from social experiments all the way to physical and mental experiments. PHS was running a study. Informed the participants, 399 men with latent syphilis and a control group of 201, they infected them purposely, who were free of the disease, they were being treated for bad blood. That's what they called it, bad blood. Yeah. A term commonly used in that area at the time to refer for a variety of ailments. I don't trust him or anyone surrounding him or anything they have to say, period. So I'll wait. I'll wait. I don't know about y'all, but I'll wait. Anyway, speaking of trust, let's talk about the trust in policing. See, this is where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, y'all. We're getting ready to get into this thing now. Look, the trust in policing in the black community is not something that we've probably ever had as long as we've been black and on this particular continent. For those of you who are with me and have been with me for some time, you already know that I discussed at length and continue to discuss. And in case you didn't know, daggone it, I'm always losing these doggone books. In the Black Factor, get your copy off my website, bmforbes.com. I discuss the first policing in America, which were slave catchers. I need y'all to understand that. The sheriff's department and other policing entities that we are familiar with today are the ancestors of, or we're the ancestors, they're the ancestors of slave catchers. That's how you got your police forces that you have today. Not much has changed in the way they do policing. They just mask it real good these days, right? But now let's talk about my city. I love my city, but I need people to be very clear and understand that part of the reason why Chicago is in the condition that it is not the violence, so to speak. The violence is nothing more than a symptom of the disease. And the disease that troubles this city is primarily economics. Economics is what has kept so many in a position of hopelessness and feeling like they need to do something in order to survive. See, survival in a city like Chicago is imperative. It's important. It's necessary. People want to eat. Everybody wants to eat. And some people find other ways to eat versus trying to do it the way that it's supposed to do it, right? Money has always been at the root of the problems in our communities. We also have to go back when we start talking about history and the history of Chicago and places like it, the urban centers of America. Let's remember that the government, the same people who brought you the Tuskegee Experiment, were the reasons why redlining became a thing in America. Redlining is when the United States government would not fund black people, particularly black GIs who came back from World War II, to purchase homes. And if they did purchase homes, they had to be within a particular area that was a red line drawn around them in order for them to buy those properties. And of course, those property values were lessened because they were considered less valuable because of the people who owned them, which of course put the community in a more poverty stricken state, so to speak. Although many black communities did survive that and come out of it, but we're still just like just like in Oklahoma. Every time anyone in the black community began to thrive and strive and do more, they of course were taken down as usual. By whom? The jealous folks of another color who did not like the idea that black people were actually having more than them. Now, once that happened, and see, you got to remember, all of these are state sponsored. These are all government sponsored ideas. And I'm telling you this because we're going to get to what's happening right now. I'm bringing you forward. Now, the government redlined people. Of course, then that meant that your tax base was going to be less, which means that your schools were not going to be equally funded, which was supposed to be separate but equal under Plessy versus Ferguson. And we could go on and on and on about all of that. However, or was it Brown versus the Board of Education? Anyway, so much of it. Point being this. Money has always been at the root of the problem. Good evening, Willie Everett. Thank you for checking in. I see you, my brother. Gina Love, I see you. Money is always going to be the problem and the cause of why there's more I can't even say more, because if you look at the Department of Justice statistics on crime, you will see that crime is very equal from white communities to black communities. A lot of people don't know that, and they don't believe it because the narrative has always been presented publicly and in the media that black people have more problems than white folks, and it's just not true. It's just simply not true. And I will say, just like I always tell y'all every chance I get on this show, don't believe me, look it up for yourself. Do not trust everything that I say. I want you to do the homework. I want you to get your Google out and look it up. All of this information is at your fingertips. Now, as time moved on, of course, by those communities not having as much as others, of course, they're not equally funded, and so on and so forth. So, and then you also have to remember, too, that black folks, because they were not financially able to get the higher educations, the degrees and things of that nature without jumping through 9,000 hoops, many did. Don't get it twisted. I'm not in any way saying that we didn't, because we did. But there was less of an opportunity. However, we also had lots of skills in place. Men knew how to do things. Men knew how to use their hands to get paid and feed their families. Let's also consider the fact that in that time, men were the breadwinners. Men were the people who got out and they did what they needed to do in order to feed their families. And a man could actually feed his family by doing the work himself, without all of the extra help from the wife having to be out of the house and working, and the kids doing whatever they want during the day, like we do now. Lamont, your question is, where are they getting all the semi-automatic weapons? Oh, we gonna get to that. Stay tuned, my brother. We gonna get to that. I'm getting there. Just hold on. I'm gonna walk you up real slow. I'm gonna give it to you though. Now, because a man could take care of his family at that time, although I didn't say it would be easy, he was able to do that. And the point being that still, a man had skills and he had something to work for and work toward. He had a job. Unlike today, many people have put so much stock in education that a degree is now considered the necessary equipment in order to get a job, and skill sets have gone away or gone by the wayside. Very few people know very little about what is necessary in order to eat. It has become a thing to struggle to find work to feed the family, and provides a feeling of hopelessness in many men. So now, what I'm going to talk about right now is the shooting that took place yesterday in my city, right on 79th and Carpenter, one of my old stomping grounds, an area that I used to rip and run up and down with no problems. Well, stuff that, we was used to. Unfortunately, these very same things that are happening right now, people have gotten used to, and that is in itself a problem. Pay attention to this video, ladies and gentlemen. All right, enough of that. You get the point. Now, this took place in an area yesterday called the Auburn Gresham area. Now, Auburn Gresham has, for the most part, been a pretty decent neighborhood. All of my life, most of my life, it was, but like many other areas within the city of Chicago, it had rules that you go by. Street rules, people know what those are. And anyone who knows anything about being in the street, like myself, you know that there are things that you do and things that you don't do. Now, this is my old neighborhood. But I want to be clear about something, y'all. And this is where we start talking about the differences. And like I talked about with the redlining and the differences within the neighborhoods and the economics. Do you realize that because there were 15 people shot as of today, they updated the list. 15 people were shot. Now, here's what nobody has said. Do y'all realize that this is considered, and it actually qualifies as a mass shooting? Now, of the 15 people shot, to my knowledge currently, 10 of those people were women. 10 of those people, I don't mean to laugh. Don't take that laughter as it's comedy. It's just so sad to me. 10 of those people were women, and if you paid attention to the video, there's a woman in there literally running down the street with her cane in her hand. Okay? Now, there is video surveillance of this incident, as you've seen part of it right there. And supposedly there were 3 to 4 individuals involved in the car. 2 of them were shooters, and they know that at least one other one was driving. Now, apparently also, some of the people who were attending the funeral returned fire on these individuals. And in doing so, the car did crash, and all of the occupants got out and ran. However, the police do have a person of interest, as they're calling him, being detained for questioning. Now, I want you all to try and just imagine this. You had a funeral for your friend or loved one, someone that you care about, and in the midst of all of that, you literally have to duck and run because someone has decided that they are trying to take further life from you or anyone else that just happens to be out there. You come outside of a service and there are people firing weapons. Good evening, Valencia. I see you. Thank you for checking in. You have to duck and run and hide for cover in a drive-by. Now, let's remember something, and this is where we get into some issues where Chicago itself is concerned. Thank you. Chicago is a city that is notorious for gang violence. And I'm not talking about within the last 40 or 50 years. I'm talking about all the way back to before Al Capone. I'm talking about folks was doing drive-bys about the same time a car was invented. Now, when they catch these shooters, and they will, they're done. And see, and the thing is, somebody knows very well who did this. It wouldn't even surprise me if someone at the funeral knows who did this. My question is, why are they silent? See, this is it goes into part of the reason why there's still a struggle within the city of Chicago, because people don't want to tell, are afraid to tell, or don't think it has anything to do with them. Now, I could go all day about those 3 different areas of why this is a problem. But, I mean, let's be honest, there are people who are not going to say anything because although they may be protected, who's going to protect their family? There are people who aren't going to say anything because they're involved, directly or indirectly, or they may have affiliations with individuals that are a part of that. Yet these are the reasons why these things continue to take place within the city. Now, don't get me wrong. Chicago is not the only city suffering from these very same issues. It's just that simple. It's just, you can pull up any major city, look through their crime, you will find that there's not much difference. But Chicago has become the poster child for crime in America for a multitude of reasons. One, because we started out back in 2008 with a black president and all of the politicians who did not like him and hated his color and everything else wanted to try and make an example out of why he should have changed the world. They wanted him to be the magic Negro. He was supposed to make everything change automatically just by virtue of being a person with dark skin. That's just not how this works. Now, to your point, Lamont, I have mixed feelings about the death penalty. However, in a case like this, Illinois needs to reenact the death penalty just for people like this. I say that only because I know that the law is not applied equally. Speaking of which, on tomorrow, we're going to, I'm going to be talking about a gentleman by the name of Ronnie Long out of North Carolina, who was wrongfully accused 44 years ago. He's done 44 years in the penitentiary over a crime that he did not commit. See, this goes back to trust, what I initially started out talking about on this segment. We cannot trust our government. We never have been able to trust our government. They have never, ever, as long as I can remember, stood up for anything they said they were going to do, held up any treaties, or showed any level of integrity. I don't care who was in office at the time. See, we have to participate, but at the same time, we have to be smart and we have to be vigilant about how we see things and how we deal with them. Exactly, Regina. The death penalty is a slippery slope, especially for blacks, and that's my point right now. We have to be careful what we ask for, because in asking for certain things, you have to look at the flip side of that coin, the B side. And we're going to talk about the B side of what y'all's president is about to do. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Now, on Tuesday, which was yesterday, a total of 23 people were shot, 4 of them fatally. I even heard of a 3-year-old that got shot about a mile away from this whole thing had happened because he was in a beef with someone else, and the boy ended up getting shot. Now, quick list. Just after 11 p.m., the men, 30 and 32, were on the front porch of a home on the 122nd block of South Morgan Street when 2 males walked up and opened fire, Chicago police said. The younger man was shot in the chest and pronounced dead at the scene, police said. The older man was taken to Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn with a gunshot wound to the buttocks and was in fair condition, so we know he was trying to get up out of there. 17-year-old boy was fatally shot in Woodlawn on the south side. He was standing on a corner about 1:13 p.m. in the 6500 block South Maryland Avenue when someone pulled up in a vehicle and fired 5 to 6 shots at him, police said. The teen was struck twice in the chest and taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead. That afternoon, a 20-year-old man was shot and killed in West Garfield Park, according to police. He was shot once in the chest about noon in the 3800 block of West Adams Street, according to preliminary information from police. Multiple shooters allegedly ran from the scene. Paramedics took the man to Stroger Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. 34-year-old man was killed in a drive-by Riverdale on far south side. They've even gone to the suburbs, y'all. They out in Riverdale. He was walking in the 600 block of the 133rd Street about 12:30 a.m. when someone in a passing black sedan fired shots at him, according to police. Boris Lilly was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center in critical condition, but later died. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office said he lived in suburban Country Club Hills. When you take the resources out of a community, what do you expect? I remember when I was coming up, we at least had programs at the Park District. Chicago Park District had a lot of good things going on. They taught tennis, and they had baseball. They had all sorts of things that you could participate in, and they were free to the community. We had rec centers and things of that nature. We had places that you could go and swim, and I could think of a multitude of other things that we had as children that were provided as part of the community. We no longer have those things. A lot of those things have been removed, along with the fact that there are so many bad elements involved as well, that our children are at an incredible loss right now. They have been at an incredible loss for the last 2 generations, which is why this generation is so quick to solve any beef or any disagreement with a gun. At least we would fight one another. In fact, some of my best friends came from a good old-fashioned fist fight. You know, there's no tolerance for fighting in schools anymore. So rather than fight, I guess they just shoot. Now, earlier, my man Lamont on here asked, where did these guns come from? Because we all know there are no gun manufacturers in the city of Chicago. But here's what you have to remember. Even if there were, they still wouldn't be the root of the problem. Just because they don't make guns in Chicago and they make them elsewhere, they make all kinds of models all over America. Some are even stolen. But they're not the problem, and they never have been. See, and let me explain to you why. I live in Texas. We got plenty of guns. We got guns everywhere. It's kids out here at the range shooting and everything else. But what they're not doing is out in the street shooting each other. Why? Why is it different here in Texas than it is there in Chicago? That's the question you have to ask. What is the difference? What makes the difference between a child in Texas who has no desire to walk down the street and drive by and shoot up a community, that he has to go and steal a gun or buy a gun from somewhere illegally, when we have kids here who have guns legally through their parents and other ways, have plenty of access to plenty of firearms, but they have no desire to do a drive-by? See, that's what you have to ask yourself. Now, it's not the guns that are the problem. The problem is the mindset and the social climate and the social experiment that's taking place. The social experiment that many have fallen victim to. See, it still goes back to economics. It still goes back to the fact that in a city of Chicago, finding a job is damn near a joke. And you got to know somebody, because we know Chicago's a hell of a corrupt city. Lots of corruption, lots of BS going on. But it takes some getting used to when you leave a city like Chicago and you know that there's a place that's hiring and they've got 2 positions available and 450 people show up to apply for that job. But then you go to a place like Texas or Georgia back in the day and a few other places that I'm familiar with, and they've got 2 positions available and they might have 3 people show up over the next week. Why? Because there are so many damn jobs, they don't have enough people to fill them. Why is that? See, these are the things you have to ask yourself. It's not the guns. Guns are everywhere. Not just Chicago. They're everywhere. I listened to Lori Lightfoot today say that she felt like it was a problem because, they can just go right into Indiana and buy military-style weapons and come back into the city. So, I don't see nobody in Indiana running through Terre Haute shooting up the city. I ain't gonna say Gary because, they mostly Chicagoans. But it's all about the economics. It's all about the fact that the haves continue to keep and the have-nots continue to lose, and the haves continue to pick the pockets of the have-nots. Nobody in Texas is going around shooting up funerals. See, this is a mental issue. This is a psychological issue. This is a social issue that until that is grasped and dealt with, you can talk about the guns all day. All that is a way to point a finger at something and somebody as an excuse not to deal with what needs to be really dealt with. People not raising their children. People being allowed to get away with all sorts of things. The community not standing up together and pointing out the problems and who the problems are and dealing with them. They'll run up in churches every Sunday and pray to Jesus that their son be okay. pray to God that all of this stuff stops. But ask them to go out there and hit them streets. Ask them to go out with the same energy and vigor that they stand up in the church with and shout and call and speak in tongues. And I promise you, you'll be out there by yourself. The church community is one of the largest black communities there is, outside of just being black. Please explain to me why, if you believe so much in God's power, why aren't you out there? Faith without works is dead. Why aren't you out there walking the walk from the talk that you're talking? Listen, here's the thing. We have resources here. We also are not forced to live within segregated communities. See, Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the United States, just in case you didn't know that. Chicago, and I want to say there are other areas in the Midwest that are also segregated. See, a lot of people left the South to move to a place where they would have an opportunity to not be judged by their color and different things of that nature, opportunity to make money and so on and so forth, which a lot of them did, particularly in that generation. That was the great migration from the South back in I think it started in the 40s or something like that. It might have been the 30s, 40s, whatever it was. And they all began to move. No, actually it was earlier than that. I want to say starting in the 20s or 30s. And they all began to move north because there was industry, there was work, there was, opportunity. And black folks huddled together in particular neighborhoods and areas and were able to become successful, many of them. But Chicago, listen, I've lived in southern cities that are not nearly as segregated, racist southern cities that are not nearly as segregated as the city of Chicago. The city itself is partially to blame for these problems. You can point all the fingers you want. But the truth is, the city itself has enough blood in its own hands to blame for these reasons, for the things that are going on that take place. And I'm going to give you an example. When you criminalize self-defense, you make it possible to only call police if you get attacked. Well, guess what? By the time you get attacked or robbed, it's too late. I know of people who literally have gotten into trouble for trying to defend themselves, who literally did not wait to call the police, who were being attacked or home invaded or whatever the case may be, literally shot and killed someone or whatever the case may be. And I'm being vague here because there are multiple cases like this in Chicago. And they themselves were then charged with a criminal act. Now, what sense does that make? Look, in Texas, we got a saying down here. We don't call police. We have what was formerly known as the Castle Doctrine, our stand your ground laws, which absolutely keep us from having to resort to hoping that Superman rides in his blue and white car and saves us from the criminal who already bust our head or shot us and took off with our money or killed one of our loved ones. You cannot criminalize self-defense, but the city of Chicago did it. They've done it. They do it. They criminalize guns when black folks started really having them, and it was obvious in the 80s. I remember when handguns got outlawed in the city of Chicago, all guns actually. It was a tragic day. But that history is what it is. And everybody knows that Chicago itself is synonymous with violence. It always has been from its inception. You can't charge someone for protecting their own home or for protecting their own lives. Here's what happens. When you disarm honest, law-abiding citizens, and see, this is my Second Amendment speech. The criminals are the ones who have the upper hand. You basically criminalize good law-abiding citizens. A criminal doesn't care that they're breaking the law. They're a criminal. You think they care if they have a gun? You think they care? They're going to take their chances. They're criminals. Now, if I'm a straight-up law-abiding citizen and I got a gun, I don't want to get caught with the gun because I don't want the police to say I'm a criminal. So I have to put my gun away, which then leaves me vulnerable to these criminals. So guess what? The criminals know this. That means that they know that the average individual in the city of Chicago and places like it with guns outlawed, they know that the chances of you having a firearm are slim to none. So guess what that means? Let me get this mark. In case y'all don't know what a mark is, that's a Chicago slang for sucker. He's asleep. I'm about to get him. Get this mark. You a mark. And many of these people will just simply, they'll brandish the weapon and say, yeah, give me your money, give me your paper, give me that watch. And as a law-abiding citizen, you already know, let's say you get the upper hand and you decide to shoot this joker. Guess what the city of Chicago gonna do? They're gonna tell you leave it up to them to find this criminal and you go home and wait. Nope, you can't protect yourself because you're gonna go to jail. You're gonna become the criminal while minding your own business and not being allowed to exercise your own personal Second Amendment right. You become an automatic criminal with no ill intent. That within itself is not fair and goes against the constitutional right to not only bear arms, but to hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In other words, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And how can you be happy when you have to worry about walking down a street and someone else decides to exercise their Second Amendment right, regardless of local ordinances, and take your shit? It's not fair. But you do have the right not to have these rights taken away from you by your government or some other idiot who thinks that he is God, because he decided to brandish a weapon and relieve you of your rights, your cash, and your jewelry. Regina says, in your own house, minding your own business by yourself makes you a criminal. Absolutely, because we all know that this has been criminalized within itself. So, I want to show y'all something. Very interesting little tidbit of information here. I'm going to tell you a little quick story. One time, and I don't remember the year, but I know it was back in the early 90s. I got robbed, y'all. You see this street right here? This is 53rd and Blackstone. For all of my Chicago folks, y'all all know that this right here is right behind my favorite pizza place, Giordano's. I was with several of my good friends. It was on a Monday night. Now, me and, let's see, I was with my partner Norman, this guy named Brian, my man Kevin, many of you know him as Whack, the artist. Look, he just checked in too. Hey, Whack, I'm about to tell this story. You probably remember this. Me, Norman, Whack, a cat named Brian, and my partner Nardo. May he rest in peace. That was my guy right there. Now, Nardo, it was a Monday night. We was all bored. We usually would go out to the club and hang out and do our thing, but it was Monday and wasn't nothing really happening. So this little spot right here where you see me circling the mouse, we were all standing right about here. We had gone into Giordano's and we bought a couple of deep dish pizzas. We had been to the liquor store already. We got us a couple of 6-packs of beer and we had us a fifth of that good cognac. Now, of course, Kevin Williams, my man Wack, he don't drink. So, of course, he was getting his pizza on. Well, we standing here, and all of a sudden, I see this guy coming, and he walks through this gate right down here, and he comes strolling across, and I'm looking at him. We all out there making a whole bunch of noise and tripping and hanging out and kicking it and thinking, we were tripping all out. You know how you're not paying attention to your surroundings? Well, that was us. Now, keep in mind that I saw him coming, and he had his hand up his shirt. There's nothing I could say. And I'm yelling at the guys, hey, man, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Nobody's paying attention. By that time, he's right here where my mouse is. See that? He's right there. He rolls up on us. He's standing right there. He's saying, we all stop talking and turn around and look at him and say, man, what's up? He say, none. Now, I want y'all to understand, the gentleman that I was with that evening, we were all people from a particular lifestyle, for the most part. Not Kevin, of course. And we were standing there, draped in gold, just doing what we normally do. Now, my man Nardo, who was a very well-connected individual, was not the kind of guy you go and stick up. Well, this guy decided, he said, well, you know, y'all standing up there, man, look like y'all eating good and living good. Yeah, so he pulls a 38 out from under his shirt and he said, yeah, I'm gonna need y'all to drop all that jewelry on that pizza right there. Give me one of them beers and I'm gonna get in. So we all stood there and looked at each other for a few minutes and thought about what he was saying. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh, let's whoop his ass. But none of us wanted to die that day because he looked like a crackhead. And this was back during the inception of the crack game. Nobody knew what this cat was going to really do. So nobody took a chance. So we broke off the jewelry. Now, my man Nardo had on a very particular piece of jewelry. He used to wear a big old rope with a great big diamond encrusted scorpion on it because he was a Scorpio. Him and my wife's birthday were actually on the very same day. And every year, he and I and my wife would meet down at one of our local clubs called Chic Rick's and celebrate their birthdays. And we drink a bottle of champagne and hang out and talk real crazy. Just have a great evening. Well, this guy took that chain. He took some of my gold. I had this one piece my grandmother gave me, and I told him I wasn't taking it off. He's going to have to shoot me. So he left that alone. So he took our pizza, our jewelry, our money, cash. He probably got about $2,000 or $3,000. And he had a good night. Well, so he takes off down the path, and the whole time he's running, he got the gun stuck under his arm with the pizza. Like if one of us come after him, he'll shoot while running away. So we stood there for a few minutes. He took off out the gate, went back around this way, and went up through the buildings. Now, my car was parked right about here where this black one is. Now, I had my pistol, but it was in the car. Why was my pistol in the car? My pistol was in the car because in Chicago, the parks close at 11 o'clock. You get caught in the park, anything could happen. So you didn't want to get, by the police, I mean. So you didn't want to get caught in the park by the police after hours with a pistol, because back then the gun laws were very strict and, you know, you couldn't have a gun. My pistol was in my car. Well, so this guy takes off. Now, my man Nardo lived in this building right here, top floor. Nardo, of course, had a zillion guns. By the time we got up there, got guns, got my gun, get back, start searching the area for this guy, needless to say, he's gone. He's long gone. He done ran up in one of them buildings with our money and our pizza and our beer. We mad as hell, but we all decided we weren't going to discuss it. That was not a topic for discussion because we all already knew that that jewelry, because of its uniqueness, would show up. And within a couple of days, sure enough, it did. That problem was dealt with. Now, my man Nardo again, very well connected. And this is where we're going to start going with this conversation into how street justice has a way of contributing to what we witnessed at this funeral. See, a lot of people don't know that there is a war taking place in Chicago up and down 79th Street. It appears apparently that the Auburn-Gresham area and the Chatham area are currently beefing with each other. The young man, or should I say Inglewood, Auburn-Gresham, that they butt up against each other. Apparently, the gentleman who was being buried, I have his name here somewhere, was shot in a drive-by, I guess a week or two earlier. And when he was killed, they had his funeral, and then there apparently was something else going on. So the people, it is alleged, I have it from a very good source in the neighborhood, it is alleged that the shooters of this funeral were from the Chatham area. And this was, of course, more retaliation for other tit-for-tat things that are taking place. Darren Honeycutt, thank you for checking in. I see you. My man Kevin Wack Williams in the building. So this was a retaliatory strike. The only problem is, you know, in a city like Chicago, we have these things that, you know, are like, well, street justice. For example, like my man Nardo that I was just discussing. Nardo was supposedly killed. This is alleged because I don't know the story. I had long left the city when I found out about this. Had been killed by his own people. I still don't know why, but apparently it was some form of street justice. But there's a difference between these two types of street justice. And I'm gonna get to that. Because usually when I was coming up, if somebody got killed in the neighborhood, it was gang related. Now, I'm not advocating that that is okay or the way things get done is okay in that regard. But I am saying that if someone who was beefing with somebody else, one or both of them might be on the opposite end of an ass whooping. Now, that's fair. Like I said earlier, you know, some of my best friends came from a good fight. You know, cats I might have been beefing with. One thing about a fight, two things. One is, after you get through whooping each other's ass, you learn to develop a level of respect for one another because you know at least your opponent will fight you. You know that just because you mad, it don't mean you going to walk away untouched. It don't mean you're going to walk away without some scars on you. It means that you had a beef with somebody and y'all scrapped it out. And you know the next time y'all beefing with each other, you might want to talk before you start throwing hands because it might hurt. Nothing wrong with a little pain, but I'm just saying you might not want to just take, you know, like, I know I got to fight this dude. I know I got to bring a lunch. That's all I'm saying. So let's just talk this out. Let's just respect each other and keep it moving. We ain't got to like each other, but we'll have a new level of respect for each other. The other thing is this. You live to fight another day. It wasn't over because you decided to settle your beef by shooting somebody, by taking a life. I don't know if people really realize how serious a thing that is. Anyway, they got at each other. We got at each other. But here's the thing, we got at each other and we didn't get at other people around us. It wasn't about nobody else. It wasn't about making mistakes. Most of the time it will result in what we affectionately call a head peeling. You get your head peeled. Get your ass whooped. Worst case scenario would be that somebody would get killed. But usually if somebody got killed, back when I was coming up, it was because There was something that someone warranted as being serious enough to put you in that position. And usually it wasn't even that much of a beef. It was more of an escalation than anything else. But usually, after it escalated that far, that was kind of the end of it. It was rarely anything that warranted that kind of justice. Usually you mess with somebody's money. It had to be a serious, serious disrespect thing, or it was usually resulted from money. But the bottom line is somebody got killed. It wasn't like today. These cats are killing people and they getting away with it. Michael Samsonite, you're absolutely right. They're scared to take an ass whooping these days. You're absolutely correct. But ultimately, if that did happen, it would usually end up with someone, receiving an extended stay at a state-sponsored vacation. I mean, your ass was going to be up out of here for a minute. But here's the thing. Even, and I'm talking about back in the day now, I ain't talking about right now, because see, we're doing this history and we're coming forward. If that happened in gang circles back in the day, unless it was self-defense, you didn't just go around killing people. You put yourself in major jeopardy by doing that. It had to be sanctioned. It had to be sanctioned within the organization by the hierarchy. You didn't just go around pulling triggers. Even if you missed, you didn't just go around pulling triggers. You had to answer to somebody. You go around pulling triggers all willy-nilly, you're going to have a problem. Why? Because what you're doing when you draw that much attention to yourself is that you're drawing attention to the neighborhood. You're drawing attention to the area. You're making everybody hot. You're making the neighborhood hot. You can't make the block hot, bro. You're messing up industry. You're fooling with people's paper now. You can't do that. That'll get you in even more trouble. Because ultimately, that's what it was all about, the money. It wasn't about nothing else. It was about getting that paper. But now, see, when you start talking about hierarchies and sanctioning and things of that nature, now you're talking about organized crime. And you got to remember that once the street gangs, they was considered regular old street gangs when there was no threat, once they got that moniker of organized crime, that was the beginning of the end. See, I'm showing you how it deteriorated to where we are now, why you see so much killing. When they put that label on street gangs, it became pivotal in their demise. Specifically in the black community. It's also one of the major contributors of how the whole city became unglued and why it's so disorganized today and why you see so many shootings. You got to remember this. Chicago has many gang factions. Chicago is a very segregated city. I want you to understand that we now have Russians. You have the Russian mob. You have Polish. They're there, and they are definitely gang affiliated in their own right. You have your Latins, because of course you got the Latin Kings and other factions of the People Nation, which include, of course, Vice Lords and Black Peace Stones. And for those who are from the city, y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of you others may not. But then you got your Folk Nation, you got your GDs and other factions that are connected. But here's the difference. The Latins, the Italians, who the outfit is currently still operating within the Chicago, which is a derivative of the mob, La Cosa Nostra, along with the Latins being part of, they have the MS-13 and they are cartel connected. You have to understand that most of these other organizations learned how to stay off the radar. They learned how to stay out of the mainstream media. That in itself is a major difference. Well-disciplined gangs controlled by older leaders at the top are largely a thing of the past. Due to the successful prosecution of gang kingpins, such as gangster disciple leader Larry Hoover, who is now 67 years old and serving a life sentence at a Supermax prison in Colorado for convictions in the 90s. Now let's keep in mind that the 90s convictions were handed to him while he was still incarcerated. Now, for my people around the country who don't really understand or know who this gentleman is, there were two major leaders at that time. You had Jeff Fort, who was a leader of the El Rukns, Blackstone, Peace Stone Nation, who is now currently incarcerated on major federal charges, and he will probably never see the light of day again, along with Larry Hoover, who I'm speaking about right now. Now, keep in mind, these charges that they convicted him on at the Supermax in Colorado were brought up against him while he was incarcerated. See, they decided to tack on more time than what he already had. You want to know what he already had? Let me tell you. Hoover was first convicted. Now, this is the leader of the Gangster Disciples. And this is, and now what we knew as the Gangster Disciples coming up and over the years has changed dramatically. In fact, now I don't even know that there's still an organized, it's a splintered organization. Let me put it that way. There are many factions of these organizations. Now, Hoover was first convicted in 1973 for murder of 19-year-old William Young. They said Hoover stood accused along with Andrew Howard, a fellow gang member. They were sentenced to serve 150 to 200 years in jail. Y'all heard what I said? 150 to 200 years, which was a total of 6 lifetimes. They got 6 life sentences. Hoover was incarcerated at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. Now, currently, there are court cases ongoing right now on his behalf that will get him out of the federal supermax and put him back into state custody. And the question is whether or not the state can actually handle him because of his power and influence within the gang communities, even while still incarcerated. I probably would go out on a limb and say that 9 times out of 10, they can handle him because the gang organization and affiliations and the way they were are no longer. Here's the thing. More violence has been and this is what I mean by what I'm saying. More violence has been an unintended consequence of the leadership takedowns. See, the smaller factions now run by younger members, and they're real quick to beef with each other, unlike before. You know, sometimes you took the L and you just called it a day, long as nobody was doing too much out the way. But here's the funny thing. Now, this is according to the DEA, Drug Enforcement Association. One possible explanation for the recent uptick in violent crime in Chicago. Wait 1 second, let me stop. Gina Love says, hell, to be honest, going way back, it went left when the Italians came in and took over the black grocery store owners like my grandfather, grandmother running numbers in Chicago and many others on the south side forced them out, took over. Fast forward, lottery today. Well, now I agree with you, but we all know that they weren't in our neighborhoods not like in the last, I guess, 30 or 40 years at least, if not more. But you're right, they did their thing just like they did in Harlem and New York. So they're saying that one possible explanation for the recent uptick in violent crime in Chicago is that younger, more brazen members of Chicago's African-American street gangs are more prone to act independently. See, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. You had to be sanctioned to do certain things back when I was coming up. If you wanted to sell weed or whatever else, you didn't just go and pick a corner and start selling. You had to pay taxes. You had to you had to be connected, affiliated, or something. You wasn't getting ready to just go out here and start getting money. It's not how that worked. They were more prone to act independently without the explicit authorization of their gang's leadership. Compared to their predecessors, Chicago's African-American gangs are more loosely organized and lack a defined hierarchical structure, arguably making it more difficult for leaders to control the actions of individual members. Moreover, it is unclear to what extent today's younger generation of gang members respect the guidance of their gang's founding leaders. All of this is true. In November 2015, two formerly powerful leaders of the gangs responsible for much of the violence in Chicago issued a statement from prison urging Chicago gang members to stop the killing. Given that the homicide rate has risen significantly in Chicago in 2016, it appears that if these pleas have not been honored by Chicago's criminals, by comparison, Mexican cartels are highly organized and have leaders who are better positioned to enforce internal policies that govern criminal activity. Nonetheless, recent intelligence indicates that some cartel leaders in Mexico may be having difficulty controlling the activities of certain members. In northeastern Mexico, some regional commanders of the Gulf Central reportedly wish to focus more on drug trafficking and abandoned activities such as kidnapping and extortion. However, some cells have refused to comply due to the profits generated by such activities. In response, Gulf cartel leaders offered rewards to citizens who report kidnappers and extortionists to the cartel so that they may investigate. Although not directly connected, these parallel developments indicate that the wishes of senior members of street gangs and cartels may increasingly conflict with the attitudes and actions of younger members. That is from the DEA. So, here's where we are now. Y'all's president made it clear that he is about to send in federal agents. So, whatever illegal enterprise, activity, venture that a person chooses in Chicago that is blatant and on the street the way that it is, all that's about to dry up. And it's going to dry up real fast. See, one of the number one rules, like I said earlier, in the past, don't do anything that was going to bring heat to the neighborhood. That way everybody can keep eating and get money. And all that's about all over. That's all that's ended. Now, some people contend that when they tore down the projects, that all of those people who flooded out of the projects and into the neighborhoods are the ones who created most of the problem and the uptick in violence. I don't disagree, but I'm not prepared to completely agree with that either. I don't know that I agree with that completely. There's a whole bunch of factors involved. People like to find a scapegoat and they love to point a finger. But there are a multitude of things that took place to cause the decline in the quality of life of Chicago residents in regard to violence and gang activity. A lot of people are leaving the city, and they're leaving in record numbers. In fact, I think Illinois has one of the number one exit migrations, or what do they call it? I don't know what the opposite of migration is. They're getting the hell out of Chicago, let me put it that way. I can't blame them. I left there a lot of years ago, for the same reasons. I saw it coming. But I do have to admit that I do still have mixed feelings about having left, but I stopped short of apologizing for wanting a better life for my children. I just can't do it. According to DEA numbers right now, there are 117,000 gang members in Chicago. 53 factions of different gangs within the city. And since January, they have taken 5,000 guns off the street. The young man whose funeral was on yesterday that was shot up, his name was Donnie Weathersby. And apparently he was shot in the head in a drive-by shooting. And what we saw yesterday was an apparent retaliation of that. There's a cycle of revenge and retaliation. And he was shot in, like I said before, Inglewood. This is an ongoing conflict. Again, allegedly, what I heard today was from Inglewood to Chatham. He was shot on 74th and Stewart, by the way. That was July 14th. Now, here's what y'all got to remember. Chicago is about to become the test tube baby, the test bed for government-sponsored genocide. I don't trust y'all's president. He claims that he's going to be sending agents into the cities with deadly politicians. He has labeled all of the Democratic mayors of the cities that he is sending, and they're all Democratic cities, and he's sending these agents to. He called them deadly politicians. He's about to make a militarized invasion with paramilitary squads in Chicago, Albuquerque. They're already in Kansas, but they're not operating in the way that he would have you to believe in Kansas. It looks nothing like that. But they're all democratically run cities. His intent is disingenuous. Now, y'all better remember, Trump got an axe to grind in Chicago. Lest we forget, he didn't get to speak there when he wanted to because he got shut down. Lest we forget, this is Obama's city. And Lori Lightfoot doesn't mind saying what she needs to say about him publicly. He has no intention other than to make an example out of this city and pretend that he, as he calls himself, the law and order president, is about to solve all the problems in Chicago. He had a press conference today where he said they're going to easily come into Chicago and solve the problem. Now, I know something needs to be done in the city. This ain't it. However, at this stage, what else can anyone do? Trump says that if the Chicago police were unshackled, for his words, they could stop it. And all I can say to that is, as long as I can remember, all the way back from when Daddy Daley was running Chicago, Richard J. Daley was running Chicago. Chicago police have never in the history of that city been shackled. Chicago police were notorious for torture and a bunch of other stuff. That's why we have so many wrongfully incarcerated people within that city to this day. Lest we forget that Chicago Democratic Convention, or one of them damn conventions, it was Republican, I don't remember, the Democratic Convention was literally attacked. The protesters outside were attacked by Chicago Police Department. Chicago police have never, in the history of that city, been shackled. Don't ever get it twisted. I only know of one Chicago cop that ever got convicted of anything, and that was the man that shot Laquan McDonald. Now, it may be more, but trust me, they might have did 6 months. They've never been held to account as long as I can remember. This is yet another project. Dennis, FOP president requested the feds help. Yep, I know, and I'm going to get to that too. But the reason the city is in the condition that it's in, it has everything to do with not only local corruption, but federal intervention. They say that multiple hundred agents are coming to the city, and that means at least 200 or more. And if they behave the same way as the agents that are in Oregon currently, Chicago's about to be in a real entanglement. It's going to be some shit in Chicago. All I'm going to say is this ain't the answer, and it's not going to be cute. It's not going to go well, y'all. I know for a fact the people in my city are not going to sit still for this. Chicago is a very unique place. On that much, I know. And I promise you, this is not going to go well. And it definitely ain't going to go the way nobody thinks that it is. And that's due to the complexity of Chicago's crime problem. There is no single or simple solution. There is no magic bullet. There's no such thing. Why don't we provide options for some of these young men, some of these old men who've never had an opportunity because they lived in the city and they chose to stay within a geography that didn't have their best interest at heart? They need jobs. They need opportunities. They need education. They need for the city to stop taking money out of everything that benefits people in the black community and putting it on the north side. It's hard to live in that city. The taxes. Do y'all know, for those of you who don't live in Chicago or who may have never been there, let me tell you something. 10.25% tax on everything you buy. If you want a bag, when you buy your groceries, you have to pay for it. It's an extra 7 cents. The property taxes are off the chain. Ask me how I know. There's a lot going on in the city of Chicago that goes way beyond anything most people understand. These people who have gone through the transition of life in the city of Chicago need something else to depend upon. Lamont, thank you. They closed down Washburn. There's a prime example. Factories in Chicago closed. I remember when the steel mill was up. Steel mill, black folks was eating real good. They closed that. I went to a vocational high school myself, Chicago Vocational. We called it the Palace. One of the largest, if not the, no, it was the largest high school in the city. Took up 3 or 4 square city blocks. 4,000 to 5,000 students at any one time. Several of my Cavalier family are on this feed right now. We learned trades. We learned how to do things. I, to this day, make money off of what I learned as a skill set at that school. We talking about high school. The school that I went to had every kind of vocational program you can possibly imagine. I learned to use print equipment. And when I say that, I'm talking about real industrial. Every shop in there operated like a real manufacturing industrial spot. We had drafting, we had dressmaking, we had horticulture, we had avionics, we had electricity, we had electronics, we had graphic arts, we had sheet metal. You name a skill or trade, woodwork, welding. I mean, it's stuff that I can't even think of off the top of my head that we had in that school. And people learned a skill. You were required to take a shop of some kind. Even if it was business, we had business. Nursing. The list is so long, I can't remember everything that we had in that school. Mechanics, body shop. I'm a body shop tech to this day because of that school. My family ate well over these years because of what I learned in that school. That's right, Willie Everett, auto body. One of my classmates. Where are the rest of those schools like that? Why do we not have more of those schools in our system? Why were schools like that taken out of the system? I got my suspicions. And it has everything to do, going back, with economics. With the fact that if you take away, see, now we can ready to get back into the black factor. There's a whole chapter in this book that I wrote. It's called The Prison Industrial Complex. And it explains how that works in detail. It explains how in the 4th grade, these now publicly traded prisons go into regions of poverty, such as some of the neighborhoods in Chicago, and they look at the grades of the 4th grade students, and they determine whether or not they'll need a prison in that region to be built. Because by the time they graduate high school, if they graduate high school, because of course we all know that young black men from 13 and up are charged as adults these days, unlike young white men who are, oh, he's just a kid. Oh, he's just sowing. He's just, he's just coming up. That's what kids do. But if you happen to be a 13-year-old and you stand at least 5'5" to 5'7", you're considered a grown man. And of course, they want to incarcerate you because the double standard is real. And once they have built their new prison, they of course have to fill the beds. They're like a hotel. They're just like a hotel. They got to fill the beds. So they create situations like crime within the neighborhood by taking away all your resources so that you have to find new ways to get paid. You got to be creative, and you do things that are illegal. Sometimes nothing more than trespassing. The next thing you know, you got a felony. Something stupid. and all of a sudden now you're a criminal and you can't get a job because now you got this little felony on your record. So eventually we're going to get you back anyway. You have to understand the amount of black men that are being warehoused within prison systems around this entire United States, particularly in the state of Illinois. It is a financial windfall. On the political side, it is a financial windfall because the local governments of any of the cities where they house criminals or would-be criminals, because not all of them are. These cities get revenue because, and y'all have heard me say it before, I'm going to say it again for those who never heard me say it, you get counted on the census when you're locked up in prison in a particular little town. And of course, that generates more income for that city and allows a level of gerrymandering that goes above your heads because you're not afraid to get locked up. Oh, I don't care about getting locked up. Well, guess what? You just took money out of the pocket of your own city and provided it to a group of people who will find new ways to keep you incarcerated. Oh, yeah. Deanna Brantley, thank you for checking in. That's my mother-in-law, y'all. My point is this. You have to be careful what you ask for. Need more skills. And I'm saying that to say we are in a time where people in Chicago appear to be desperate. People in Chicago appear to be shaking their heads and thinking, well, damn, somebody got to do something. And I don't know how many times I've said it on here before. I'm going to say it again. There is no they. Stop looking for the magic bullet. Stop looking for a savior. You are your own savior. You are they. You are the individuals who have the ability to make change in your own communities if you will get out of your churches and off your knees and stand in your communities together and make change. See, here's the problem. While Trump, if it was anybody other than Trump, I might not have a problem with him sending the feds in to try and help straighten this out. But I know that he has no goodwill. He has no good intentions. I know that he's going to make a mockery of this. This is my whole problem. Dennis McCullum said, if you just walking down the street and the police ask you for ID and you refuse, now you can be accused of resisting arrest. And you know why you can be accused that way, Dennis? Because the people have not stood up for themselves or for the city. Look, when I was coming up, the men in my neighborhood, I grew up partially in Chatham, partially out in the Hunnits. But I can tell you this much. In Chatham, right there on 79th Street, between State Street and King Drive, certain things didn't go on. If they did, you didn't see it. The children didn't see it. The elders didn't see it. Most of the women didn't see it. The men made sure that people were taken care of. We stood together in ways that kept the nonsense at a minimum. I'm not saying stuff didn't happen, but what I am saying is that when it did happen, you had a force to reckon with. You wouldn't get ready to just come in there and do whatever you want. That's not how that worked. Today, everybody is huddled up in their houses, scared to death. Scared. At some point, fear is going to be your demise if you are not careful. The problem with these troops that are coming to Chicago, number one, I already know that people are not going to just be welcoming. You think you are, but like I always say, you got to be careful what you ask for, because you have to ask yourself, how will they differentiate between you and the criminals? How will they differentiate between the law-abiding citizens and the people? Because now, as an example, here we are at was the other day in Oregon. These same Homeland Security agents basically attacked a U.S. Navy veteran. They tried to beat him down with their batons and did, whatever they felt like doing. It went viral. It made national news. But my point is, he was a peaceful protester, and he had the right to be where he was. If you think for 1 second that can't happen to you, I'm sorry, but this is just like how Homeland Security got built. Y'all have to remember, after 9/11, you, like myself and everyone else in America, had a whole lot of our rights stripped away from us by then the Bush regime. They did it in the name of so-called safety and security for the country. Well, that same organization, those same Homeland Security, the organization created under Bush, are the ones that now have the legal right to show up in your city and do as they please. So you got to remember, they're not using the National Guard. In order for the National Guard to show up, the governor has to request them. Now you have a police commissioner who has requested for federal help. Here's someone who does not, I'm sorry, not police, the FOP guy. So now they're going to bring these foreign individuals. It's bad enough you have people who don't even live in our neighborhoods, policing our neighborhoods in the first place. These people are a part of the reasons why the neighborhoods had the problems that they do. People in Chicago do not take kindly to foreigners. Now that may sound crazy, but I'll give you a prime example. I remember when they had the doggone I can't remember the damn thing. It was the basketball. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Well, they was in Chicago last year, and when there were a couple of videos that came out, and one guy made this joke, and he said he was telling everybody, he was saying he had a list of things not to do while you visited Chicago. On that list, one of the things was, don't be talking about you from somewhere else. He's like, if you go in McDonald's and you ask for some fries and they don't give you the right fries, you say, well, I'm from New York. He was like, you just gave everybody in that restaurant a license to whoop your ass. People in Chicago don't like people from other places. And I can assure you, Chicago is not like other places. When these individuals in these uniforms, thank you, Michael Sampson, I appreciate the All-Star game. That's what it was. When these individuals show up in this city, it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not going to be a bunch of scared people running and hiding. It's not how look. I know that this is not going to go the way that I think Donald Trump thinks it's going to go, but I also know that it's not going to go the way that many of us think that it's going to go. I think there's going to be some very bad things that are going to happen behind this. If I thought for 1 second that Donald Trump had the ability to be honest or do the right thing or be a man of honor, then I would say, and even then I still would know that there was going to be problems. But I would feel more confident that it wasn't going to be a direct attack on people within the city of Chicago. There are going to be people walking around minding their own damn business that are going to be attacked by the U.S. government. Mark my words, you heard it here first. It's going to happen. Soon afterwards, you're going to hear people in Chicago saying, I hate that they ever came here. I know we had a problem, but I hate that they ever came here. It's not going to go the way you think it is. Everybody's saying, oh, we need help. No, you need to help yourselves. If the people in the city were helping themselves, they would have no need for these individuals to show up, to mop up and clean up this mess. Kim Norman Evans, I'll tell you like this. The concealed carriers will definitely be armed. I agree with you. However, the problem is, as a concealed carrier myself, I can tell you that it is a slippery slope. We still, as black men that are concealed carry, have to be exceptionally careful about the way we conduct ourselves. Otherwise, that very right that we have that we take, that white folks take for granted because they can, we still have to walk on eggshells because that very right to carry a firearm can backfire in our faces. See Philando Castile case in Milwaukee. The very same thing. The reason he's dead today is because he legally was carrying a firearm, and that police officer to this day did not receive any punishment for the murder of that man who broke absolutely no laws. See, this again, a slippery slope. See, these are the problems that we face within America as black people. The double standards. We have to be very, very careful. And again, this is going to be a situation that is a powder keg. All I say is that people, please do whatever you can to stay safe. This man got on TV today and talked about how he is the law and order president, and he has every intention of stopping the carnage. And in my mind, that only means one thing. They're going to come through there like gangbusters by any means necessary. And they're going to do as they please, and they will find new ways as well as old ways to justify their behavior. City of Chicago has a long history of corruption, violence, and prosperity. They go together in that city. Chicago is the epitome of what America was founded on. Violence, religion, and money. Do not get it twisted. No one in Chicago, and that includes the white people, are very civil when it comes to outsiders. I tell people all the time, if you meet a white boy from Chicago, he could be the worst nerd in his neighborhood. But if you think about fighting with him, you better bring a lunch. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I come from a very rough, tumble, scrappy type city. And even the biggest nerd outside of the city of Chicago will give you all you can handle. Please believe it. It's the truth. I know people make all kinds of cliche remarks about Chicago being a tough city and all this kind of thing. Listen, it's true, baby. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. It's true. This is not a cliche. It's not a joke. They're not going to take kindly to what's about to happen. And all I'm going to say is y'all keep yourselves safe. Try as hard as you can to deal with it and do what you got to do. So, oh, look at that. Tanner done checked in. My man. With all of that said, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to all remember to fly your new American flag every chance you get. Keep yourselves covered up. Take care of each other. Be careful what you ask for. Do your due diligence. Do your homework. And stay on top of the game. Phyllis Harris, you say you hope the organized gangbangers are armed and ready for them as opposed to us. Well, I would agree, except that the Chicago gang organizations are not nearly as organized as they once were. See, during the 90s, the federal government came in and they put a bunch of racketeering charges on several of the heads of many gangs. In doing so, they created a vacuum. When they took them all down, they caused it to splinter. Now there are no real hierarchy. There is no control, like we talked about earlier in the DEA report that I read. There's no control. There's no one group or individuals that call the shots anymore. Now you have a bunch of smaller groups that do as they please, and they beef with each other. So when that happens, it creates a whole bunch of mini wars, and it's very difficult to put out a whole bunch of little small fires. If you got one big fire, you know what to concentrate on, but now you got a whole bunch of little fires, and they all burning furiously. So it's gonna be a hell of a thing to see. But like I said, y'all take care of each other, take care of yourselves. I'm about to get up out of here. Love, peace, and chicken grease, y'all.
Door number 2 or door number 3.
Oh, wow. Oh, all right, okay, all right. No, wait, okay, wait, okay. All right, no, wait. Oh, wait, Monty. Door number 1, 3, 2, 8. No, wait, hold on.